Welcome back to my Pokemon Platinum Hardcore Nuzlocke walkthrough. In the last episode, we were able to bring down both Mars and Gardenia without too much of an issue, having perfect answers to both of their teams. And while I'm still feeling very confident about our run and how everything has gone so far, the game is about to get a lot harder. With our fantastic new encounters in hand, it's time to take on Team Galactic's Jupiter. The road from Gen 4 Casual to Platinum Master continues. Let's do this. Before we get into the Jupiter fight, I have to level up the rest of my team for a bit. After some initial damage calculations just to see where we're at currently, this one is going to be really tough, and it will probably involve avoiding multiple crits in order to get through Deathless. And honestly, that's really what it's gonna come down to, because there's only so much we can play around here. Before we head into the building, be sure to pick up the TM for Thief past the trees that are now cuttable. Thief is another great move for stealing boss fight berries, but it can also be very useful to pick up other items as well, especially off of specific wild Pokemon that may have a chance of having some pretty cool held items. After blasting through some galactic grunts, it's time to face off against our scariest challenge yet. Jupiter. Time for team review. Monferno will be leading the charge against Jupiter's Zubat, as I unfortunately don't have a better answer for this thing outside of Staravia, but I really need Staravia to switch in on Skuntank to get that attack drop off. So this is what I settled for. Speaking of which, Staravia is up next and she'll be doing most of the work on Skuntank. I'm looking to get that attack drop in like I mentioned before, but I'm also looking to nab that citrus berry, potentially go for a growl, and then finally go for the Endeavor, because at that point my health should be low enough to where it'll be worth it. I will have to avoid a crit to pull all that off though, so fingers crossed. Geodude will be the one to finish Jupiter off. I hope. I do have self-destruct if I absolutely need it, and I do have a strategic sacrifice with me in Wurmple as well for a clean switch. Let's see if I can get through this cleanly. I lead with Monferno and go for the Flame Wheel, hoping for a crit. It leaves Zubat in the red, and unfortunately the wing attack does connect for a ton of damage, but Jupiter does not opt for any healing items, so another Flame Wheel brings Zubat down. With Skuntank now out, I switch into Staravia to get that attack drop in with Intimidate. Fortunately, Jupiter's Ace leads with a Poison Gas instead of Night Slash, popping our Pecha Berry in the process and essentially giving us a nice clean switch. I go for the Growl first as I mentioned in the team review, and at this point I really think I started to overcomplicate this fight. The Night Slashes finally start to come out, and so I go for the Pluck to grab that Citrus Berry and deal some damage. I probably should have just gone for some more damage instead of a second growl, just because a crit would have rendered that extra stat reduction useless anyway. In these situations, I'm pretty much on a timer, because this thing will eventually crit, and when it does, I'm in bad shape, so I probably should prioritize damage here. I was overly worried, so I set in Wurmple as a strategic sacrifice to cleanly switch Psyduck in, giving us the first death of the run. It is at this point that I try to go for the Disable, which is a risky play, but it does actually pay off as Skuntank is now locked out of its only attacking move. But again, overthinking things, I sent in Geodude and went for the Rock Polish first to see if I can get some extra turns in by becoming faster. I don't know what I was thinking, and it didn't even matter because I was still slower. And at this point, I finally just said screw it. What the hell am I doing? Just smack the damn thing around until it dies. Luckily, Geodude gets a favorable roll on the second magnitude, and Jupiter finally goes down. Very sloppy stuff there, suffering our first loss of the run. I know we probably won't need Wurmple anyway, but it still just feels bad. After the fight, we pick up the upgrade on the other side of the room, even though we won't be able to use it during this playthrough as we aren't playing with trait evolutions. But I wanted to point it out because Porygon is a guaranteed encounter in Platinum, and if you want to evolve it, you'll need this. After exiting the Team Galactic building, we head back to the Pokemon Center to heal up and put our poor little caterpillar friend in the box. This creates the extra space in our party needed for the free egg that Cynthia grants us in front of the bike shop. This egg will hatch into yet another friendship evolution in Togepi. The biking back and forth is very much worth it though, as you will eventually have Togekiss as your ultimate reward. Togekiss is an S tier encounter in my opinion, as long as you get Serene Grace over Hustle as an ability. Serene Grace is one of the best abilities you can possibly have, and Togekiss should be able to utilize it well, primarily with Air Slash. But combining it with Ancient Power seems like a lot of fun as well. It's got great stats, great move pool options, it gets Aura Sphere, which is just stupidly powerful. Yeah, it's good and it's guaranteed in every single run. Now that we have access to both the bike and of course the use of Cut outside of battle, we have a few items that are now accessible to us. Heading back towards Eterna Forest, there are a few pickups here that we can grab around the exterior. These include a plethora of berries, a big tree. Why are you giving me this? Silver powder, which is a held item that increases bug type attacks, which is not super useful unless you're using Kricketune at this stage, and the TM for Sleep Talk. I continue to head south through Floroma Town and back on Route 204, where we can now cut through this tree and flirt with a random stranger in the middle of the woods. We do get the TM for Captivate out of that exchange, which is a very nice debuff against some of the scarier special attackers in this game. Could definitely come in handy at some point, especially if we want to use any setup strategies later on in the run. Turning around and heading back up north now to go back to Eterna Forest. Yeah, there's a lot of jumping around if you want to grab all the items that you can. You'll notice that I've switched up my team a bit, finally bringing both Buizel and Badoo out of hiding. With our new bike, we can finally start leveling up Badoo's friendship, and with the level cap now at 26, Buizel will now be able to evolve into Floatzel and learn Crunch, just in time for Fantina and her ghost types. We run into Gardenia right outside of our destination, and if I'm not mistaken, this is a Platinum only exchange. Even though it's just a quick little bit of dialogue, I really love when Game Freak makes the gym leaders feel like they're actually part of the world, and not just sitting in their gyms all day waiting for the next challenger to approach. It really helps the immersion factor. But now for what we came for, and that's to explore the forest's haunted mansion. Such a cool atmosphere. It just adds to my long list of reasons why I love Eterna Forest so much. If you noticed, I waited until it was nighttime to go through this area, as there is a special encounter here that I'm looking to pick up, and that would be none other than Rotom. Rotom is a super cool Pokemon that I am very happy is now available during your playthrough in Platinum, where in Diamond and Pearl I believe it was strictly post-game, because it required the national dex. Respectable speed and power, possessing all of the great utility that both electric and ghost types get, and speaking of that type combination, 3 immunities and 5 resistances is a huge upside. Plus, I just love how you obtain this Pokemon. It even gets its own theme. Our other option here would have been Ghastly, who is also pretty great, and perhaps arguably better if you are able to eventually get Gengar. But since we are, again, not playing with trait evolutions for this run, Rotom just makes more sense anyway when you compare it with Haunter. Before we leave this place, we grab the TM for Substitute, a move that can totally break the game if used correctly by specific Pokemon, and we can grab the Dread Plate, which when held increases the damage of our Dark-type moves by 20%. I have a feeling we might get some use out of that shortly enough. Now back out of the forest, and oh look, it's daytime again. We take another nice stroll through Eterna City and head south to Route 206 to take on Cycling Road. Nothing to note about the trainers here, they aren't very impressive for the most part. Same with the item selection. Outside of the Poison Barb to increase the damage of poison type moves, there's not much to go over in that department. But it is time for another encounter underneath the road above us. And it's a Machop. Not bad, but this could have been Gligar instead, which hurts more knowing that we can't use the trait evolutions in this run. Machoke is still an overall solid Pokemon, but we already have an S-tier fighting type on the team, and Gliscor is just on another level. Its stats are incredible, it gets seemingly every single physical move in the game. We do have a lot of other flying types already, I suppose, so I guess it's not a huge loss all things considered. Machop will most likely remain in the box though, unless something catastrophic happens to the team. It's time to head into Wayward Cave, and no, I'm not talking about this entrance. If you want to explore this part of Wayward Cave, be my guest, but other than a handful of move tutor shards, there isn't a whole lot to do in this section of the cave. It could be useful as somewhat of a grinding spot since you will have another companion with you as you navigate around the cave in Mira. But honestly, Fantina's level cap is not difficult to reach with the experience that Platinum provides naturally along the routes that lead to Hearthome City. And so, I tend to skip this section of the cave altogether and come back to it later if I need some of those shards. Now, the section of Wayward Cave that you definitely want to explore is the hidden entrance underneath Cycling Road. From this hiker here, just to the south of Wayward Cave's main entrance, you'll want to position yourself right next to the road above, and walk 9 steps to the left and then straight up to find the hidden entrance. Let's start off with our encounter first, which is a Bronzor. It's worth noting that it was either this or Onyx for the walkthrough, as I banned pseudo-legendaries in my runs, which of course includes Gibble, which you can also find here. If you don't ban Garchomp on your Platinum runs though, you're gonna hope that you run into that Gibble instead, because oh boy is that terrifying creature a game changer. But Bronzong is pretty good as well, honestly. A defensively focused Pokemon with a fantastic typing, and 2 great abilities that can promote that playstyle even further. The 2 biggest downsides to Bronzong are 1, it can be difficult to get used to with how slow it is, and 2, Bronzor is pretty awful, and just generally not very useful until it evolves, which won't be until Crasher Rake's level cap. It's definitely unfortunate because it means it won't be super helpful against Maylene, at least nowhere near as helpful as it could be. Now to get into the rest of the cave. Upon first walking in, you can interact with this rock in the bottom left corner of the map to get a Dusk Stone. Then, as you head north over the first set of ramps, you can pick up a Max Ether. Upon going over the second set of ramps, you can get the hidden Stardust inside the wall, separating the 2 rock mounds. Then, by jumping over the next set of ramps and jumping off of this ledge, you can pick up a rare candy. And last, but definitely not least, by reaching the very end of this hidden cave, you will be rewarded with the TM for Earthquake. Yeah, that's right, Earthquake before gym number 3. I think this may also be a Platinum exclusive feature, and it has to be the only game I can think of within the first 5 generations that grants you access to arguably the most consistently powerful move in all of Pokemon. Do yourself a favor, don't skip over this. After cycling up and down the route to level up Bidoo's friendship, we reconnected back with Route 207 where we ran into our Ponyta. Before we head over to the eastern side of the map, we can actually head back over to Oreburgh Gate to pick up another sweet TM in Brick Break. Another very solid move that can be obtained so much earlier than in Emerald. With that TM in hand, it's time to head back to Route 207 and head through Mount Coronet. Before we do, we can pick up a hidden rare candy and obtain the Versus Seeker and Dowsing app from Dawn. Super useful items. The Versus Seeker may be the greatest key item ever created, honestly, and it makes grinding both experience and money a lot easier. The Dowsing app is pretty nice as well if you're not using a guide. It's certainly more user-friendly when you compare it to the item finding items of old. Last quick note before heading into another cave, be careful with the Geodudes you encounter on this route from the hikers, as they have self-destruct. I'm not sure if I have any footage of it, but one of them blew up in Monferno's face and got him pretty close into the red, so watch out for that. Heading into Mount Coronet, there really isn't much to see here just yet, other than another encounter if you so choose to receive it now. I'm personally going to wait for my Mount Coronet encounter, so I pop a rappel to navigate through this small portion. I'm not sure who I actually want to go for from this place yet, as it's really massive and there are a lot of potential Pokemon to pick from. What you're seeing on screen is just within this small section here. We have another Cyrus sighting as he says some pretty depressing stuff, but whatever, we'll worry about him later. Don't forget to pick up the hidden Stardust in this rock here for some extra cash, and just like that, we say goodbye to Mount Coronet already for now, and finally reach the eastern side of Sinnoh. Route 208 is nothing too special item-wise, and the trainers aren't too bad either, Water. Pretty boring route for the most part. Only thing of note here is the Berry Master's house towards the end of the route where you can pick up the berry checking app, which is pretty useful honestly if you're not keeping track manually. And finally, we have our encounter, which is guaranteed to be a Ralts since we've already caught a Zubat, Badoo, and Bidoof on earlier routes. And it's male, which means that we have access to a Gallade if we want it. Wow. Gallade is a fantastic physical threat with a really cool typing and excellent move pool selection. Leaf Blade, Psycho Cut, Close Combat, the elemental punches from Tutors, Earthquake, X-Scissor, Night Slash, Sword Stance, just whatever the hell you want really. Huge pickup for the team, and now I just gotta figure out how to make space for the crap ton of other Pokemon that I want to actually use in this run. I'm definitely excited about it though. And with that, this episode is now over. We just had our toughest boss fight yet, but thankfully Wurmple was the only loss that we had to take, and it could have been much worse. We also managed to pick up a lot of very useful items along the way, and in the next episode, we've got Fantina up next, who has historically been one of the tougher fights in this generation. I'll make sure that the team is all leveled up before then so we can hopefully get right into the action. In the meantime, as usual, please like the video if you liked it, and subscribe for more content like this. That's it from me, I'll see you next time.